I think I might need a new chair. This one's actually starting to squeak.
Oh, mine does too. I got to be really careful.
Yeah, I didn't used to have to be. Maybe I might see if I can oil it.
Yeah.
At a later date, because I'm.
Well, that's pretty bad.
Can you hear that even through the noise gate on Discord?
Oh yeah, quite prominently actually. Yeah, that's pretty loud. If you're trying to get it faster and faster, I can tell you've like hit your limit of like what you're able to do. I could tell that like you were trying to get that to go faster and faster, but like clearly you were at like the limit of what you could do
Yeah,
whatever you're doing to make
yeah.
it make that noise.
It's quite tricky because it's
if
like
you were
when
still making YouTube shorts, that would have been a good video.
Yeah, it's when I lean back basically. It's kind of like
I'd love to see live footage of that.
it's way less exciting than it sounds. Maybe I could record it and upload it to like freesound.org or some Foley for a particular type of animated movie.
Particularly unsuccessful activities based on the fact it kind of peters out.
Oh no. Anyway.
That'd be the good ending as well. You've got it already recorded. Oh no.
What?
For the Foley.
For the Foley? Oh no.
Oh no. There you go. That's
there
you're done.
we go. Perfect. I'll maybe I should upload it for a small fee.
Yeah.
I'll put it on OnlyFans. Hello and welcome back to the now award-winning Scramble Checksum podcast. That's right, it's award season, and like many other shows and things that you might have enjoyed over the last year or so, we have won an award for the podcast with the most misleading or completely inaccurate information spouted at regular intervals and then doubled down on, with a listener/viewer base of practically zero. We were up against a podcast called The WAN Show from a company called Linus Media Group. However, unfortunately, they were disqualified due to the fact that they still have quite a large fan base. I'm still salty, also known as Ethan. Joining me, as always, is my good friend Kieran. How the devil are you?
Wow. What? God, I'm over the moon at the fact that
So you
we've
should
won
be.
this prestigious award.
It's quite incredible, isn't it?
That is, I mean, I can't wait to make the logo for it.
Yeah.
And slap it over everything. Award-winning podcast.
Yeah.
We can update all the YouTube tags.
I think
Award-winning podcast.
we can put it in the header and footer of our website.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
what better tool to build a website than Squarespace? That's right.
Yeah.
We're also starting this week's podcast with an advert. Just like popular video streaming platform, Amazon Prime will soon be including as part of your paid-for service.
Oh, look at that! Oh, that was beautiful. Sorry,
Smooth like
I know
pure,
I just
creamy
ruined that segue.
Kerrygold
But
butter.
like, I know you said you planned it, but the way that you linked it into the thing that you didn't even know I was going to say, or did
That's
you
why we're
manipulate me into saying that?
That's why we're award-winning, the most manipulative podcast.
Yes, the most. That was another. Did we win that one as well?
No, we were a close second.
Oh, right, okay.
I was trying to think who we'd lose out to. I couldn't think of one.
Who did we lose to? Was it the WAN
The
Show?
Joe Rogan Experience, I think.
Oh,
Allegedly.
man.
But yeah, so Amazon Prime. I actually had an email about this the other day. I'm not an active subscriber at the minute, but I was in the past on a free trial. I don't think I've ever paid for it. Don't quote me on that. Or do, as part of the Inaccurate Podcast Awards.
Yeah, I don't think I have ever paid for it either, actually.
Well, now if you are paying for it, as of, I think, some point in early February, so by the time this podcast episode goes live, it'll have been, the scheme will be active. You'll start seeing ads as part of your paid-for Prime Video.
And this is on. So I've vaguely been aware of this, but not. So this is on so if you're paying in the UK, I think it's $7.99 Great British pounds. That's
I
the
believe
plan.
so. It's the one that comes with. So this is the thing, right? This is where I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on it and how people are going to react to it, because I feel like Amazon Prime Video has a bit more lock-in than like Netflix, right? Because you don't just use it for your video, presumably. You've probably, in fact, I would love to know how many people subscribe to Amazon Prime Video just for the video. Because from what I've heard, a lot of their big like tentpole shows haven't been that well received. Like there was that Lord of the Rings one that I think everyone hated.
Yeah,
Don't quote me on it.
Was that the Wheel of
Rings of
Time?
Power.
Or was that something that?
No, Wheel of Time I think is a different show based on a beloved book series.
I've just angered a whole section of the internet.
or I have. One of us has. Guaranteed we have at least angered some fans of one of those franchises.
Yeah,
either you or me.
Done.
Yeah, I think the other one was based on a different beloved book series that they also completely borked. I don't think that either of them were well received. I'm sure some people like them. So that's the thing. I don't know who is actually subscribed to Prime. I guess you get some sports, I think.
Yeah, I've noticed that they seem to have added like live channels as well recently. I've noticed there's so there was the other day when I went on there was like live channels. So it was like showing shows, but like they were scheduled at a certain team
weird
time, like literally like an old like your old school like digital TV.
Why the hell are they doing that when they own Twitch? I'd be pissed off if I was like a top of the line Twitch streamer that they're like linking to other live shows that they've got that's running like a
no, it's not live shows. This is like the same as how like
I know
you
what you
have
mean,
like
a
the
TV schedule.
like drama.
But what?
So like pre-recorded content.
Why have they got pre-recorded drama when you can go on Twitch and have drama live? They could just show you the most for the drama category. Just show the most controversial Twitch channels they've got.
Yeah.
And then that fills that niche. So I'd be pretty pissed off if there's that. And yeah, there's some sports. I think they've got like a little bit of a few. I think they've got like a little bit of tennis, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of like some sports that like normies like, unlike Formula One, are shared between various different broadcasters, unlike Formula One, who Sky have a monopoly on.
They've got like a little bit of football, I think.
Yeah,
but like not a lot.
Football, tennis.
But you wouldn't just have them for sports, because I don't think they've got enough of it that if you were a big enough fan to pay for it.
Should we have a goosey gander, shall we?
Well, you have a look. While you're having a look at that, first of all, I'm curious as to who's signed up for Prime just for Prime Video, because I don't think it's that compelling. So this is where I think they're trying this, because if you were Netflix, right, and you try and introduce like adverts at your quote unquote standard tier, I know they've got the one where it's cheaper, but that's kind of a different offering.
Yeah.
But if you're like Disney Plus or you're Netflix,
they added a cheaper tier, didn't they?
That's the thing. It was a cheaper tier, whereas the price hasn't gone down. You just start getting ads. And they sent the usual bollocks in the email of to ensure continued approve. Basically, we spent a lot of money on some shows that weren't well received, and we need to recoup that from our subscriber base. So we're going to bilk you by showing you some ads as well.
Even though we'll just slight scratch aside that we're like one of the most valuable companies in the entire world.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
So we totally need more money. Like
AWS, that's nothing to do with us. That doesn't make any money.
AW who?
We don't make any money from AWS. What the hell? Profitable.
We definitely couldn't like totally eat the cost, but our shareholders want even more money.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we built. It's not like when we run up your huge bill on your EC2 instances because you made a mistake. That's not profit.
Amazon Prime is such a weird streaming platform. I'm just scrolling through it now. So, like, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but so by the way, just for context, dear listeners, I may have misspoken earlier when I said that I don't pay for Amazon Prime. I totally do, and that's how I'm logged into it right now. Anyway, moving swiftly on, there was nothing suspicious there. Like I said, I do pay for Amazon Prime. That's like
lining the coffers of Bezos et al.
I totally do pay for it. Don't you worry.
Of course. Yeah, that's how you access it. Yeah. So you're scrolling through.
Yeah. So there's that you can subscribe to other streaming services through Amazon Prime.
That's very strange. What
like Paramount Plus, Lionsgate Plus, Mubi Plus. I feel like I've seen even like Disney Plus, like Crunchyroll's on here. Do you remember Crunchyroll?
Oh, dude, I got love for Crunchyroll.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
That used to be advertised like all over the place on YouTube back in the day.
Yeah, Crunchyroll had to kind of get a bit difficult with their monetization too. That's probably a separate topic, but yeah, you don't get as many free shows as you used to on Crunchyroll.
Yeah,
anime fans out there all know that experience. A lot less on the free Crunchyroll tier now.
Yeah, I think Apple TV does a similar thing actually to what Amazon Prime is doing here, where you can so you can have all your subscription or a load of your subscriptions through Amazon Prime. So when you search for stuff, it's like in the same feed, which is actually makes sense. Kind of like it is kind of irritating, like when you can't remember what.
Or you're switching apps a lot.
Yeah, when you
on
can't
like a
remember which
TV and it's
streaming
slow.
service. Yeah.
Assuming
Not
that
if
the
you've got a
Amazon app
Roku.
isn't slow. Well, not if you've got a Roku.
Oh yeah.
But like, okay, so first of all, I'm like, okay, who's using Amazon Prime just for that? But then also they've kind of got a unique advantage because of that, because it's tied into your like Prime delivery. So I think a lot of people just kind of have it. I'd also be really interested to know what percentage of Amazon Prime, because there's a lot of Amazon Prime subscribers, and I'd be really interested to know how many of them have never logged in to Amazon Prime Video, because they send you emails all the time, right? But like, I'd love to know how many of them have just never looked at it. Of just like or I've looked at it once and I have like a total watch time of like 10 minutes.
It'd also be interesting to know if, like, because there's a lot of, it seems to be becoming more, or I wouldn't, maybe mainstream's not the word for it, but it seems to be becoming closer to mainstream to boycott buying things off of Amazon, doesn't it?
Well, that's a relief. I'm pleased to hear that.
I feel like I'm hearing more normies talk about boycotting Amazon, not just like us weirdos.
I think a lot more people have had a bad experience on there where they've like bought a product that's like a kind of dropship special, and it's been really poor quality, or they've been looking for like a branded product and have found it's either not sold on there anymore because the brand's pulled out, or it's hard to find because there's a ton of Amazon ads for like knockoff products.
Yeah, apparently they're like seller policies on like where else, like other marketplaces are pretty toxic, right? Aren't they?
Oh, they're not a good experience for a seller. I'll kind of leave it at that. I mean, I like had experience of it before they launched Amazon ads, which has just kind of ruined the ecosystem, I think, in terms of like if you're a small seller. It makes life very difficult. Basically, if you're not buying reviews and paying into Amazon ads, you're not going to get sales. Is my understanding.
Piling in on how shit Amazon is as well. I was speaking to someone this week who used to be an HGV driver for them, but he only worked there for a couple of months because they just they promise you everything, and then until they've got you locked in with a contract, and then they just basically treat you like absolute shit.
I've heard it's like a similar experience for what I've heard for the even the developers.
Yeah.
Like it's the way their like salary structure's set up. Everything's to incentivize getting like a year of really like crunch work out of you and then burn you out whatever onto the next person.
Yeah. That's so fucking.
It was like there was that stat where there was one region in America where they'd employed 100% of the available workforce.
Oh yeah, and they had to move because there was no one left who would work for them.
It was like either people were actively working for them or they were an ex-employee.
That's crazy.
Which is mad. But yeah, thinking about the streaming service then, what's your take on the fact that they're now just adding ads to it? So like they're not reducing the cost. You can pay a little bit extra to remove the ads, but like is that just them recouping losses and they're kind of taking advantage of the fact that people probably won't cancel because they want the free delivery and they're not really that bothered about Prime Video, or is it the start of things to come and Disney and Netflix and all that are going to be watching and be like, oh sweet, we can do this now too? I mean, they're going to be watching, right? Disney and Netflix are going to be watching this with so much interest of like.
I think like I've watched so many video essays on talking about this, and I think even one that I couldn't even be asked to watch because I knew exactly what it was going to say. Popped up in my feed this week saying it's going to get worse, and it just had like the Netflix logo as a thumbnail. Oh, right.
The intensification has truly begun with streaming services.
Well, it absolutely has, because we're already at the point where it is basically like Sky TV or like cable TV that you'd have in the US back in the day and everything. It's like your streaming services have become like your different channel packages basically now. Like
so you can have like a basic experience for a small amount a month, but if you want,
so Amazon, you're paying $7.99 at least for that. Netflix, you're paying, so call it £8. Netflix, you're paying at least £5. So now we're up to £13. Then you've got your Disney Plus, which you can
I think
get.
Disney's $9.
Yeah, but you can get an annual plan for £80 a year.
Same as Prime then.
So what does that work out? 80 divided by 12. So call that £7. So we're up to like what, £20, and then Paramount Plus. I don't know how much that is, but probably around a tenner or something.
Probably same as Disney, I reckon.
Yeah. So okay. So now we're nearly at 30, and then there's Lionsgate, nearly at 40. Like.
To be fair, I don't think no one's getting all of them right.
No, because but if you want to watch all the things, like the popular releases that are coming out, they're now starting to become spread out. It used to be that there was a few streaming services that, like Disney and Paramount and all these companies, they just license out their content to, but now they're all going, no, we want to do our own streaming service that only. And the problem is, like, the thing I'm finding is, like, even Disney owns so much IP, and there is a lot on there, but it's actually, I don't know, there's not actually very much variety.
There's a lot of Star Wars and a lot of Marvel.
There's a fuck ton of Marvel and Star Wars, yeah, and then a smattering of other stuff. But I'm actually beginning to question whether Disney Plus is even worth it.
See, Disney's an interesting one because, like, there's not. It's relatively cheap compared to Netflix. To get all the Disney films, but then you're not watching them regularly. They've not got the, like, regularly rewatch shows in that respect. But then they do have a lot of the Fox stuff, which is it's like you got Simpsons, Futurama. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, it depends what you're interested in. It's not really got a lot of the content that I'm kind of interested in watching.
Yeah, if you want more, like, if you're not interested in Star Wars, Marvel, or that stuff, you kind of got nothing on Disney that you'd regularly watch, so it's probably not worth it.
Yeah, I like Marvel up to the end of the Avengers.
Do you know I've only ever watched one Marvel film?
Seriously, like pre MCU or part of the MCU?
I have no idea. It was one of the Iron Man films. I think it was Iron Man 3.
Oh, that's MCU. Oh, okay, yeah. That's like, I mean, it's an alright film, but that's like the worst Iron Man.
Yeah, and I didn't really understand it because I hadn't seen the previous two. I just went to see it with some friends. So that's the only Marvel film I've ever watched. I haven't seen any of the other stuff.
Maybe one day, but when we're old and retired, we'll have a MCU.
I can devote the 3,000 hours necessary to watch all of the MCU.
It's worth it. It is actually genuinely quite good, like, unironically. Like,
I can see the appeal. The superheroes don't really.
I think for me, like, I'm not so. I think it's like the overarching story is quite, in my opinion, quite well done. Like how cohesive, like, all these different stories and how they all come together, all these different characters. Like, I'm not, like, the superhero stuff is like, whatever, but it's just generally kind of enjoyable to watch.
It's just not quite worth $7.99 every month in perpetuity.
No.
Yeah, you kind of see it and then it's done. So what do you reckon about this Amazon biz then? Would you be, if you were an Amazon subscriber, would you be pissed off if you were?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think rightfully as well. They haven't specified whether the ads are going to be. I assume that they'll be for similar to the ads that you get on YouTube. Is my assumption. There'll be brands. I don't think they'll be like Amazon ads, but maybe. If they are, then that would kind of be weird that you just got like a bunch of Amazon products come up. So I think there'll be like video ads or maybe ads for other Amazon shows, but they're not really ads in that case. I'd be a bit pissed off about having to pay £3 a month to get rid of them.
I think the thing that they, yeah, I don't know.
But does the fact that you get the delivery, are people just gonna like it? And then, because people on Amazon don't leave en masse because they get the Prime delivery, will one of the others, which of the other streaming platforms is going to miss the whole point of people not cancelling Amazon Prime en masse and then introduce ads and then lose a ton of subscribers? Who's it going to be? Who's going to make that fuck up? Because someone will.
I don't even know what the most popular ones are. Like,
I don't think it's going to be
Netflix is. I don't think Netflix will be it.
Netflix won't do it because they've already got the ad tier, which is cheaper. Yeah. Like, they've already kind of shot their shot.
I think
on that.
The only way Netflix would do it is they'd up the price of every single tier.
Yeah, that's their kind of model. They just increase the price every year, like all the other ones do.
Yeah.
I don't think Disney would do it.
No, I don't either.
Because I don't see them. More because I don't know. I think they'd be smart enough or savvy enough to realize they'd lose a ton of subscribers if they did that. I think it's going to be like Paramount Plus, because they seem to be like the ones that are late to the party and kind of don't really understand the market super well. I'm gonna make a hot take here that Paramount Plus are gonna see the Amazon Prime thing, see that Amazon Prime don't lose a ton of subscribers, miss the whole point as to why that is, try and do the same thing, and then just a ton of people will cancel.
Yeah, that sounds like a solid shout to me.
That's my hot take. I think I don't know, how long do you think it'll take them to miss the point of the Amazon thing and then fuck it up? I think at least summer.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say maybe around 6 months, like a couple of quarters. I think they'll observe, they'll look at the trends over a couple of quarters, and then I think
summer this year, because that's when the blockbusters come out, right? The summer ones. Yeah. Paramount will probably have some of them. They'll think, oh, we got all this unmissable content. Let's stick the ads in right as it's about to drop. They'll not have realized that the people on Amazon didn't cancel because they want stuff the next day, and then they'll introduce it and then realize that people don't give a crap about Paramount Plus beyond the shows because they've got nothing else to offer, and then they'll cancel.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll circle back to that in summer and see if my hot take was right.
And that might be a lie, because we might have just completely forgotten about making that hot take.
More likely than not, we'll forget about it. And then we'll be doing a podcast in summer about the fact Netflix have gone out of business or something like that, and be really surprised.
Yeah. But yeah, Netflix started charging £50 a month for their ad tier, and they went out of business. I'm pretty sure we've never spoken about anything about this before.
Netflix quadrupled down and just invested all of their money into some niche show that failed. Or it'll turn out that Disney's bet on original IP will completely fail, and everyone will be like, God, why don't they just keep making Star Wars and Marvel forever like they currently are doing?
Oh yeah, we should totally.
If only they just carried on with more Star Wars, more Marvel. Why did they pivot to original content? That's what sunk them.
If only we'd carried on with things.
Yeah.
What if only we'd carried on making laptops with all their components soldered to the main board so that you couldn't repair or upgrade them?
If only all those landfills that are no longer filled.
Yeah,
with eWaste.
All these empty landfill sites, wanting someone to love them, and
all those seagulls that you see in all the pictures of them.
Yeah,
desperate for refuse to land on, fresh e-waste to perch on.
Yeah, and they've got nowhere to go. Just think
nowhere to roost.
Think of the seagulls. We are, of course, talking about the Framework 16, which at the time of recording has finally been released into the wild. It would seem.
Is it released?
It would seem so. Yeah. There's definitely actual.
As in you can buy it, or as in it's pre-order and they've got review copies out.
Yeah, but I believe. Well, review copy. People have received review sample, but actual production versions now, not pre-production, which is what we had about 6 months ago. And I believe when I looked on the website, the first laptops are supposed to ship January.
Wow. So people who aren't Marquez will soon have one in their hands.
Yes. Yeah. I don't even know if Marquez has even ever spoken about the framework.
He might also be fair. Laptops aren't so much his bag, are they? Unless it's like a MacBook.
No. His laptop bag.
Hey.
Terrible. Anyway, yeah. So some Framework 16 reviews have come out. Obviously, iFixit have done one and have given it they've said it's an easy 10 out of 10 for repairability, and they would have given it higher if they had a higher score.
If only I heard it just beat out the Microsoft Surface tablet.
Oh yeah,
as their best ever review product.
Oh yeah, the Microsoft Surface tablet, obviously a pinnacle of repairability.
Of repairability. Not a single screw, so you don't need to worry about having the right screwdriver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all the adhesive and soldering that really.
It just needs heat.
Yeah.
Just put it as long as it's hot enough, that thing will come apart.
You don't have to worry about whether or not you'll break the screen when you're removing it, because you just will. So.
Just heat it to the point where the screen comes out, and then you'll ruin it anyway. So.
Yeah, it will break while you're removing it, so don't try to not break it. Just accept your fate and lean into it. Just embrace it.
Embrace the fact that every single ribbon cable will be damaged.
Yeah, and then throw it in the bin and buy a new one.
Yeah, there you
go.
Think
of the Seagulls. Hashtag pray for the Seagulls.
So obviously got the highest score ever on.
Yeah. So from a repairability score, solid as expected. However, other other areas, I've watched the beginning of one review and the entirety of another review from some rando YouTube laptop reviewy dude, and overall, I would say not super favorable.
Is it? Would you call it mixed, or would you call it like if you were doing the Steam reviews summary? Would that be mixed, or would that be mostly negative?
Mixed, I think.
Mixed reviews. Oof.
I think the thing is, it's not a bad laptop. It is class leading when it comes to repairability and upgradability, which is its stated mission. The problem is, like, the whole selling point for the laptop itself is you can repair it yourself easily, without having to jump through loads of hoops, and you can upgrade any component, including
cool. So it delivers on that, right?
Yeah, including the discrete GPU. Yeah, which it delivers on.
So tick, delivers on that. The primary goal of it achieved.
The problem is, if you're looking at it from a purely financial perspective, it's based on this one review that I watched. It's, I think, like I said to you, it's something like £600 or £700 more expensive than an equivalently spec'd and performant laptop from a traditional OEM like Lenovo, or I think it was specifically a Lenovo Slim Book something or other that he called out as having the same hardware and performing the same, if not better, whilst also having I think he said it's got a higher resolution screen. The fan noise is way better. The speakers are better. The palm rejection on the trackpad is way better. Just like, if you're just purely talking about the out of the box, I've just bought a laptop. I've opened it up. I'm not upgrading anything. It's cheaper and it's better.
Right. So Lenovo is better, but the Lenovo presumably is standard laptop level of repairability. I know Lenovo are better than
that's the
most
thing.
On some models, not necessarily that one.
That's the thing.
Well,
he didn't say
ThinkPads.
Whether that model had things like, I presume it seems to be for most people other than Apple, the SSD can be upgraded on most laptops, and that's about it.
I know the ThinkPads have I believe they still have RAM that you can upgrade.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. That could be soldered on now, but I don't know if that's the case for like
most
that particular
manufacturers
laptop
are doing
model.
soldered on.
Yeah, so that's probably the case for that model, especially because you said slim. Normally, it's those ones where they're like, okay, we'll sacrifice. So the Lenovo's not upgradable. About, did you say £800 cheaper?
Something is in. Well, he was talking in dollars, so
hundreds of dollars cheaper though.
Yeah, hundreds of dollars cheaper. We're talking like the Lenovo was something like $1,300, and the framework equivalently spec'd was somewhere in the 2,000 ballpark.
So I've got some thoughts on this, but I want to get your take first. Do you think that's rightfully a negative review, or do you think that's too harsh?
I am on the fence. I think that it is a fair criticism.
So I got some hot takes on that, because I think that's a bit unfair.
However, he did end on, we'll see, this is the first kind of wave of these, and they did improve the framework 13, with, like, initially it had some issues, and it improved over time. He did say that the framework 13 is much more comparable to an equivalently performant laptop in terms of everything. Like, it's more well-rounded. So I think a lot of the things, like, so one thing he particularly called out was like palm rejection on the trackpad. That's probably a firmware problem.
Yeah, I was going to say that's fixed. You fix that with an update.
That can probably be fixed. Fans can change out the fans for something quieter. I think a lot of the issues are fixable, and I think the price will, providing they do actually stick to their morals, which so far they haven't given us really any reason to believe that they're not a company that is quite tied to being moral and doing the right thing. that I think the price will come down as they scale up production. So, but I think it has made me less bullish about just going straight out and buying one.
Yeah, I can see the reason of being less bullish about going and buying one. I think that take has a lot of unfairness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it misses a lot of the point.
Well, my take on the video,
the reviewer's take.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there was quite a bit of criticism there, which is fair enough. Like it's fair enough to kind of raise those points and say, hey, I don't think this is very good. Hey, I don't think the palm rejection is very good. I never like the take of, oh well, that could be fixed in software. It wasn't fixed in software. It's the reality. So I think that's a fair enough criticism to say it's not very good. Because it's like, yeah, it can be fixed in a future update, but then
you should never buy a product based on a promise of a future feature.
Yeah, and it's like at the end of the day, it wasn't released with that fix.
Yeah.
And Lenovo could push an update out that fixes another aspect of theirs. So I think that's kind of that's fair enough. Where I disagree with it is the kind of the cost angle. So I think criticizing the fact that it's more expensive is, firstly, you're comparing it to a laptop by Lenovo, who God knows how much bigger they are than Framework, but it's significant, right? That's like,
oh yeah.
It's like
I think Lenovo is one of, if not the biggest OEM PC manufacturers in the world.
Yeah, so like so let's say you've got like a boutique build computer, like a desktop. I'm thinking like the kind of Puget Systems type that you see where they build it all for you, or the Origin PCs where they ship it to you in a crate, that kind of stuff. Like, you're comparing that. You wouldn't buy one of those and then compare it to, like, I don't know, a Dell workstation and be like, well, it's more expensive.
No, it's
like it wouldn't come up. So I don't understand why. I think whether it's because laptops are such a commodity, or whatever reason, I think it's a bit unfair.
It's not quite the same though, because it's not a bespoke built laptop. It's
not a bespoke build. I mean, you can build it yourself. You can pick all the parts.
Yeah, but it's still it's more. Even if you build it yourself, you're not really building it yourself, because you're limited to effectively a number of different SKUs of the same device, like you would be with if you were just optioning. Like any OEM laptop, you can have like an i5, i7, other more different i7, or you could have a handful of different screens on it, or you could have a handful of different like discrete GPUs. So,
but I would say, like, okay, so you option the GPU.
Yeah.
So you're comparing an option of a GPU that you can swap out in a few minutes versus the same GPU
soldered to the board.
That's soldered to the board. Like, it's not really a fair comparison, right? You're optioning a GPU that you can take out and replace.
Yeah.
With one, that's not really a fair comparison, and it's the same with like the I/O and stuff, right? Like, you're optioning something that's got the I/O that will never ever change, versus something that's got all the R&D involved in having like I/O that you can swap out really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like I think it is kind of like comparing a boutique product to a mass-produced product, because one of them has had a ton of R&D. In fact, probably even more so, because one of them's had a ton of R&D go into building it. They're not just buying, like a boutique system builder's buying off-the-shelf parts, right? They're just putting them together for you in a nice case, maybe, that they've had custom made or custom laser etched.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys are like R&Ding actual I/O components that you can swap out. Like, that's a really big difference from someone like Lenovo, who's buying like a, I don't know, USB port that's wave soldered onto the board for pennies versus however much it costs Framework to produce a module for the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think that the pricing's a bit of an unfair comparison to me.
Yeah.
And I think as well, like, it rules out the fact that Framework are doing all this good stuff. Like, no one says as part of, I don't know, I've not heard it said anyway by anyone who's reviewed it and said about the price, like, oh yeah, well, it's $800 more expensive than Lenovo. But it's like, okay, so where's Lenovo's schematics? Who's making them available? Where's Lenovo's...
Do you think we maybe need to look at it kind of like... Because this is the thought that kept coming into my head, because I have been thinking about this. Obviously, like, a long time argument against electric vehicles has been, but they're way more expensive than an equivalent petrol or diesel car, or gas to our American friends. But it's kind of like, yes, but you're missing the point, because the reason they're more expensive is because they're a new technology. The scale isn't there yet, but they will come down in price. And if you're an early adopter, you are going to pay the early adopter tax, but it's like the benefits are still there. And so it's almost like if you buy a framework now, it's kind of like if you bought an electric vehicle in like 2012.
I think so, yeah. And I think it's like, I guess it's like there's some parallels there too, right? Of people saying about, and first of all, I just want to say, like, if you are saying, oh, it's too expensive for me, that's completely different. Like, I completely understand that, because it is an expensive product. If you need to buy a Lenovo because you need a laptop and your budget is X and you can't stretch to the framework, that's totally fine. Like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think
that's more where I think that's probably kind of where I'm coming from. I feel like that because I've wanted to have an electric vehicle for like pretty much since I started driving like 7 years ago, but I just haven't been able to afford it.
It's just not practically possible either for cost reasons or for like your situation or whatever. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think where my problem is when people compare the two prices and then put that as like a demark almost against the framework or against the EV. It's like, that's not really that's...
Yeah, if I had £2,000 burning a hole in my pocket right now, I'd absolutely just go out and buy a framework 16 fully spec'd.
I think potentially it could even be, if your budget is around that region and you're looking at like framework versus higher performance laptop from another manufacturer, then I would almost say like, it's probably, I think saying, oh, the framework's overpriced or the framework's too expensive for what I get is kind of unfair, because you're getting that upgradability. So I think if it's within your budget.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of open questions though, like how much will a GPU upgrade cost you?
That's fair enough. I think if you've got worries about that,
and what GPUs are even going to be available, because like right now there is only one GPU available, and that's an AMD GPU. I believe you can only get an AMD CPU as well, because they partnered with AMD for this whole thing. So which that raises some concerns for me, because that makes me think, okay, well, is there some kind of exclusivity contract? Does that mean that it's only ever going to have AMD options? We're not going to see Intel or AMD like we have on the 13? Are we never going to get an NVIDIA option for graphics?
I think that's a fair enough criticism, because that's like you're looking to the future and you're thinking, hey, I'd like this laptop that's upgradable, but I'm kind of reluctant because... Yeah. And I think that's like one of the... You were saying about EVs. That's definitely like you bought the Tesla... is it the Roadster, the first one?
Yeah.
You've bought the Tesla Roadster and then the range gets way better. That's one of those kind of risks that you take with being an early adopter. So it's definitely like a laptop for people who can afford to take a bit of a gamble on it for principles.
Yeah, or for people who can afford for that laptop not to last them 5, 6,
yeah,
10,
to not quite live up to the same promise.
Yeah,
or where they have to maybe spend a bit more to upgrade more of it to get it to last that in line with that promise. I think that's fair enough.
I think some of my hesitance as well is like what the thing that attracts me to the framework is, one, like from an environmental perspective, it's been as a techie, it's been such a source of irritation, just the unnecessary waste of technology products, because like one component in them dies, and then because it's soldered, you either pay through the nose for someone to maybe fix it, or more likely it goes in e-waste and you have to buy a new one. It's so unnecessary. So like that's part of my reason for being into framework, so the environmental side of things. But the other part of me is like with my desktop, I have all that customizability and I have the functionality that I want, but I want that on the go. And so the framework, it to me is like, that's what I want it to be. I want it to be my desktop but on the go. I want to have to carry as little peripheral items with this laptop in order to get the functionality that I currently get out of my desktop from that laptop. And things like the speakers being suboptimal, for example, is a bit of a deal breaker. I don't want to have to carry around a Bluetooth speaker with me as well, for example. So,
and it is kind of a risk, I guess, of like, one day you might be able to buy a better speaker module.
And if the palm rejection on the trackpad's shit, then I have to carry a mouse around with me and have the trackpad turned off for the laptop to kind of be usable on the go when I'm not using an external keyboard, which is kind of like, that's another kind of knock against it. And it's a lot, for me, £2,000 is a lot of money to spend on anything. Like, let alone a laptop. Like,
it feels like a classic Gen 1 product problem, doesn't it?
And it's technically not something I need either. It's like, it's something I would like to, as for my hobby, which includes like producing this podcast, which is a hobby. Like, so you know, it's kind of, it's hard to I'm struggling to justify spending that amount of money on it when I already have my PC, which collectively, other than being portable, is more functional, and in total my entire setup costs less than that.
I think as well, like, what I'm hearing is, and this is fair enough, you're kind of saying, like, this is a Gen 1 product. I recognize it's got Gen 1 product flaws.
Yeah.
I can't afford to be the guy that goes and takes a gamble on this.
Yeah.
In the hopes that they can maybe fix some of the issues that people have identified.
Yeah.
With either relatively inexpensive upgrades or firmware.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wait for, like, 10,000 of these or however many to get made, all the other flaws to be found. Them to be worked out in Gen 2, and then that one, which will be probably like the same level as this one is now in terms of cost, but I'm not taking as much of a gamble because I'm buying the Gen 2 where a lot of the kinks have been worked out.
Yeah, hopefully.
Which is fair enough. Like, being an early adopter is expensive.
Though, I might even not even get the Gen 2 because I feel like this year I probably do need to buy a laptop, and I really don't want to buy just something that's... I want to buy something that can actually replace my desktop. I don't want to go back to having two computers because it's just... I don't know, it's just annoying. I want to have the same experience whether I'm sat at my desk or whether I'm on the go.
The question is, do you buy a MacBook and then gamble on the resale value?
Fuck no. Because the MacBook doesn't do everything that I actually want it to. For one, it doesn't run like quite a lot of the games that I want to run.
Yeah, that's fair.
And yeah, it doesn't run Windows, so it can't run quite a lot of the applications that I need to run. So it just and it also doesn't satisfy my tinkerer's
scratch that little tinkering itch.
Yeah, but I can't help it. Like I want a system that's stable, but I also want a system that I can play around with and modify and check and just fuck about with. And a MacBook just isn't that.
No, that's fair. Speaking of tinkering with your system, I had some thoughts on the framework related to that.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm kind of keen to get your thoughts on. So, you know how a lot of their customers are going to be really big, like tinkerers, they're going to be the techies, they're going to be people that like customizing their computer.
Yeah.
How much of a price premium do you add onto that because your customers are more likely to be a pain in the ass? Like, as in, okay, so if you're like, and I would lump myself into that group. It's like if you're like a tinkering person and you get the framework laptop and you notice, like, I don't know, one of the reviews I saw said that the color accuracy of the screen had a bit of vignetting in the corners.
Oh yeah, which is
if you're a non-techie, are you going to notice that and complain?
No,
probably not.
Absolutely
if
not.
You're a techie, I've spent £2,000 on a framework laptop. You're 100%.
Oh yeah.
Email them and say, "Oh, excuse me, I ran this benchmark on my laptop." Like, another example, if your CPU that you've got has been binned, you lost the lottery basically on like how it was binned, and it doesn't perform at like the level you're expecting on benchmarks. If you're a non-techie, you're not even running those benchmarks. As long as it says it comes with what it's supposed to come with, you're fine. If you're a technical user and you get it and you benchmark it because you're excited about your new laptop and you want to show it off, and it doesn't perform at the level you expect, you're 100% going to email, oh, excuse me, I've actually benchmarked my...
I got 10 points too low in my
Now, I think you'll find... Now, my CPU thermal throttles at precisely the 8-minute mark from my benchmarks, and based on the performance I expect from... It's like...
I watched a review, and when it was at full loads on the review, it was drawing 90 watts from a wall, and mine's only drawing 89.5 watts, and
you're going to complain. And like they have to either ignore that and risk their reputation, or they have to pay someone to respond to that. And it's like, how much do you charge extra for having to deal with that?
Are we doing ourselves a disservice? I don't think we're quite that bad, are we?
Well, no, but like that people you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and
no,
I love
do.
this kind
I
of stuff.
absolutely do.
It's really exciting to me. But you know for a fact, if just by being an enthusiast, you become. I think enthusiasts make for
annoyance
sometimes
for other
annoying
enthusiasts.
Yeah, enthusiasts can be annoying customers, I think.
Yeah,
because they know about the product. Well, it's not that they know about the product even, because it's not just being informed. It's like you're excited about the product, and
you have higher expectations.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You kind of go into it, and you've watched all these videos, and you've got excited about it, and then you want to like demonstrate that it performs at the level you expect. So you run all these tests, and then I don't know. I feel like you're more likely to complain because of some like minor niggle that probably 99% of Lenovo customers who just buy the laptop off the shelf wouldn't even... Lenovo could have really sloppy standards with some stuff, then just completely get away with it in 99% of cases. Whereas Framework will have a much higher, like, excuse me, Framework, like that kind of customer.
Yeah.
And it's like, how much do you charge for that? And then it's also, because they've got this kind of... They've almost like wrapped this millstone around their neck of like... Which I really support, the repairability thing. But like, okay, so how many people are going to buy the DIY kit, fuck it up and ruin their laptop? Like, there's going to be a non-0% of people who buy the DIY kit, excited about building it, fuck something up, and then tell them that they did it all as they followed the instructions, and it was just defective. Right? There's a percentage of people who are going to do that. Or
it's not super complicated though, because the DIY kit, I think the DIY kit is literally just you install your own RAM and SSD.
Yeah, people will mess it up though. Someone will. I
feel like the vast majority of people who are going to do that are probably the kind of people who have already probably bought and built their own desktop and have probably already tinkered around with laptops. So I'd say, I mean, I'm basing this purely off my gut instinct. I think the number of people who do that who balls that up will be incredibly low.
It might be incredibly low, but it's non-zero compared to like Lenovo's who just churn them off the production line.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a significant risk factor personally. That one.
Okay, so
I think your argument about the what I will call the nerd effect, is valid though. I think you're definitely right on that one.
And I think as well, based on that, okay, so you buy a Lenovo laptop, right, and you get one piece of paper that's like a quick start guide that's got a QR code in it that tells you how to press the power button on and not to plug the mains power into your like. Directly into your finger. Well, I wanted to avoid the crass. Comparison, but if you want to go down that route, yeah, exactly that. Basically, don't plug the device into yourself, here's where the power button is.
Oh no.
So yeah, that. Whereas like Framework have produced all these what look like really well designed guides. That's a lot of person hours to make these guides, and do all these repairability instructional things. And release all this information. And it's really sad because I feel like they're held to such a high standard because of that. But then people are like, oh, well, it's a bit more, it's more expensive. That's kind of shit, isn't it, that it's expensive? But it's like, yeah, of course it's expensive because they have to, if they didn't produce, can you imagine if they didn't produce all this like supporting info of how to do all this stuff and they just left you to it? People would complain about that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like, I don't think it's expensive because they're gouging. I think people just, people are just, yeah. I think people are
product. People are like, it's expensive.
Yeah, people are always gonna. I don't think it's an unfair. I don't think it's unfair to compare them to. I mean, they don't have any like direct competition there, so you kind of got to compare them to like well, if you're not going to buy this, but you absolutely need a laptop, what are you going to buy? Well, you're going to buy.
Why are they not comparing them to MacBooks more then? Because it's like they're at a price premium because of the Apple branding. That's their kind of like get out there. Oh,
if Apple was still running on Intel, I would agree.
Even if they're not, it's like they've made the M2. We've made or whatever it is they're calling it now, or like we've made
M3, I think.
M3. Wow. So like they've put all that R&D into the M3 framework. Have put all the R&D into a removable GPU module.
Yeah.
It's like it's
I don't think you can compare MacBooks and PCs.
It's
really
hard to compare in terms of like direct performance.
They're not. Yeah, because I mean they run the applications that they can and can't run are different. The operating system's different.
Totally agree.
The CPU architecture is different. So and the customer base is kind of their priorities are completely different, aren't they? But then that's kind of the same as what you're saying. I guess you could argue that the customer base for Framework, the priorities of them are different too.
It's like, why are we not comparing a really expensive MacBook where they charge a premium because it's really thin or it's in a like aerospace grade titanium that went on a space mission once? And
he did compare it to the size of a MacBook, to be fair, in this review, and he said that the MacBooks are heavier, I think.
But like, that's not comparing the price point. It's like, yeah, it's MacBook's heavier, but like some people would say that's a plus for the Mac. They're like, oh, well, it's more premium materials, more metal, heavier.
Yeah, I like that I have to pay for a chiropractor every time I lug my laptop up across London on the tube in a backpack.
But it's like, why are they not comparing with like, okay, this is I would argue that it's closer to a MacBook in terms of like it's where its price point might be than a Lenovo, because it's like the MacBook's a premium product. It's positioned that way because they've got Apple branding on it, which is, has its value.
It is nice. Yeah, I feel like it wouldn't hold up very well to the MacBook in terms of some of the like.
In some ways,
have you ever tried have you ever been into like a Curry's and tried the speakers on the current generation 16-inch MacBook Pro?
I've not tried the speakers, but the keyboards are. But not the current gen. Which was the ones that were the good keyboards?
I don't.
Not those like ones that do the fake.
Probably pre.
Anyway, you know what I mean? Like those keyboards that they had that were really like just incredible for laptop keyboards and for how thin they were.
Yeah.
But like I would say comparing a keyboard you can take out in 1 minute is a fair comparison with a keyboard that's insanely good to type on in a machine that's like a monocoque design and going to the eWaste. I think that's a fairer comparison than comparing it to a Lenovo keyboard that feels better, but
I don't think he was necessarily. I think the comparison to Lenovo was more on the. It was more a, if you're purely looking at it from a equivalent performance, say raw just numbers on the GPU, CPU, memory, etc. Then that was like what you could get.
That's fair.
It's cheaper. Also, you get a nice trackpad with better palm rejection. The speakers are better. The heat dissipation is more centered on a specific point, so the whole keyboard doesn't get warm. Things like that, and the fan noise is quieter. So
that's fair enough. If it was literally just like, oh, okay,
yeah,
here's what you compromise on to get the repairability and to support this.
Yeah, because he didn't write it off. To be fair, the end of the review was kind of like, this is the current state of it. We'll see what happens with iterations as it goes on, and we'll review it again.
I've perhaps been a bit too harsh then in that case, saying like, oh, well, he's saying it's all.
Yeah, you've been really harsh on him based on me giving you not the full information up front. That's very unfair of you.
But I think, to be fair, like it sounds like okay if he's not ragging too much on the cost. I think where my problem is, I've probably done a bit of an inadvertent straw man of like, oh, if you're saying it's expensive compared to a Lenovo,
which I feel like to be fair though, it's not redundant. They absolutely are.
People will be thinking that, and that's fair enough. Yeah. If you go with the Lenovo because it's too expensive, that's fair. Like that's not a problem. It's just if you're like, oh, I could afford to spend this much, but and I want to support the movement, but I'm not going to because I can buy a cheaper Lenovo. I think that's the kind of faulty.
Yeah, that's bad.
Thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the bad take.
Yeah.
Here's my final question on it for you.
Go on.
If so they don't exist anymore, but like, do you remember e-machines? I think they were called.
Yeah.
So if e-machines had a crack at making a modular laptop, and they kind of, or like Thermaltake, probably a better example. So let's say there was
Thermaltake would just steal Framework's design and then
so let's say Thermaltake stole the design and made like a bad version of it. Like there was no documentation. There was no instructions of how to put it. Or there were very bad instructions on how to put it together. You couldn't buy it pre-built. The customization options were all the same, but the hot swapping was kind of janky. Like instead of being able to take it apart in a few minutes, it took like half an hour.
Yeah.
Like you could do it, but there was some bits where you're like, oh god, this is really fiddly. I'm gonna dread this.
Yeah.
But it was like, I don't know, in between the price of the framework and the price of the Lenovo. Do you think it would do well? Would people buy basically the like shit version? Like they copy the idea, but everything's kind of fiddly. Would people buy that because it's cheaper? Like you still pay more than a Lenovo because it's the modular. You can buy the upgrades as well, and like they're kind of janky too. Like there's weird configs that don't work and stuff like that.
There'd definitely be. I think there'd definitely be a sizable number of people who would buy it. I don't think.
Do you think it would do better than the framework?
No.
I think it would.
Do you?
I think it would outsell the framework. I think more people would buy the crappy version.
Maybe in the short term, but I think then a lot of people would be disappointed.
I think they would in the short term. A lot of people would be disappointed. Framework would go out of business, and then one of the like mainstream companies would come along and just make it, but like Framework did.
Okay.
That it's sad to say, but I think that like
I think you're probably right.
I think what would probably happen is Framework would carry on selling the like really, really good product that was really nicely supported, but the company that came in and just sold the same kind of idea, but cheaper and crappier, and like more fiddly, but like 'cause it's easier to repair than like the Lenovo. Still, you can still swap the battery out when it dies. You can still swap your GPU out. It's kind of faffy and but it works.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards that I sent you that Tuxedo computers laptop. Link to it earlier this week. I'm kind of leaning towards getting maybe one of them. I need to do a bit more research into them because they basically their whole thing is they make hardware that's designed to run Linux basically.
That's an interesting concept.
But also be kind of like, repairable, but not quite in the same way that Framework is. More in just like what laptops were before this whole like solder everything to the main board thing became.
Yeah, you could buy a new battery. You could you could change the screen and it wasn't horrific.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, things like that.
That sounds like a good compromise. To be fair, that sounds like a better reality. Obviously, Framework doing really well would be the best possible reality. My scenario where someone comes in and makes crap, and puts them out of business would be like the kind of near bottom.
Yeah, I don't think Tuxedo are ever going to be mainstream though. I think Framework could be, or a Framework alike, like laptops like Framework. I think could become more mainstream. I don't think Tuxedo are going to become mainstream because
if they continue
they're too much on a Linux focus.
I was going to say if their focus is primary Linux, I think they're really going to struggle with the kind of mainstream.
Yeah.
Things. I think Linux is still.
Yeah,
I don't want to make the joke of like everyone saying, "Oh, Linux is going to become a serious competitor any year now."
It is growing in market share. I've become more optimistic. It's definitely like if it continues on its current trajectory of improvements on reliability.
I think it also depends on like if the other operating systems continue on their also similar path of becoming crappier.
Yeah.
Then I could definitely see it like taking off a lot more.
Yeah.
Like, if Windows starts going with more ads in the operating system and feels more like a free-to-play game.
Yeah.
That's when I can see Linux really taking off.
Yeah, which it is becoming more and more so.
Yeah, I think if they continue with that, Linux continues getting more user-friendly with some of the distros.
Yeah.
Then I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, Windows 11 still feels it's nicer, but it still feels like Windows 10, like kind of it still feels like it's a skin running on top of Windows 7. Same like Windows 10 did, and like there's still so many bits of UI that are left over from like when are we actually going to get an actual complete UI and like overhaul in Windows? Is it ever going to happen? Or are they going to just keep remaking Windows 7 with a slightly different design and some additional features shoehorned in there? And
I think in 5 years, you'll still be able to go 3 menus deep in a control panel. No, it's not. You'll still call it control panel. You'll still be able to go 3 settings menu items deep and get the like Windows XP looking menus. I think you'll still be able to get those. I think 5 years.
Yeah.
There'll be some kind of thing where you go like, oh well, if you go into networking and then IP config and then properties, it will bring up like it'll be like, oh, there we are. We're back in Windows XP.
Yeah. I think Linux is. I think that the list of things that's stopping me going onto Linux is getting smaller every time. Every like 6 months or so I have another go at it, and every time I do have less issues, but there's still deal breaking issues. Like for example, the current one that I'm on is I've been trialing Linux Mint. I've dual booted on that, and the problem I'm having is the one game that I play quite a lot of, Euro Truck Simulator 2, seems to be one of the only games in existence that just does not run properly. Like, I can either get it to run in full screen on one monitor as opposed to, for some reason, always spanning across both monitors, but at a playable FPS, whether if it's on one monitor, it's at 20 FPS for no apparent reason, or I can put it in windowed mode, and then it will be on one monitor, but then it will never ever let me go into full screen mode again, and also VSync doesn't work. But other things work fine. If I load up, like for example, Half-Life or Portal and a number of other games, they just work straight away.
That's because of the Steam Deck. Valve did really good work, actually, to be fair to them, with the Linux support. You know what the really frustrating part about your Euro Truck Simulator issue is?
Yeah, go on.
I'm like almost 100% sure that someone in the world would be able to go like, oh yeah, all you need to do is open up this file, add this random line of what looks like gibberish, add that to it, save the file, run the game, and it'll just work perfectly. Or go into your console, go into your terminal,
but
type this command.
Honestly, it's been a classic. Like I've Googled so many times. There are loads of people who have exactly the same issue, and there's like a long string of try this, try that, and the threads marked as solved, but the actual solution isn't in there. It's just like, oh yeah, I tried that, it didn't work, but I've got it working now. And it's like, why?
There are multiple people on planet Earth that could solve your issue in about 5 minutes. That's the most frustrating part. But you'll never find the solution.
Yeah.
Just by searching it. It's like if you don't know someone that already knows the solution to that.
Yeah. And that's why I'm stuck on Windows.
I'm the same. It's like I'll try and run something. I'll get an error message I'm not familiar with. I'll search it. There'll be a ton of instructions on to follow that I don't fully understand. And either I'll follow them and the error will go away, but I'll have no idea why. Or why I put in the commands I did. Or I'll follow the instructions, it won't go away. And then I'll not be able to find any other solution for it.
Yeah. It's...
And probably if you were forced to use it. Because, like, that's how we learned Windows, right?
I think I was thinking about this. Like, yeah, because...
It's not that Windows doesn't have random error messages that pop up that don't make any sense.
Yeah, because I have been through this before, and it took ages, because when I transitioned from Mac OS to Windows.
Yeah.
But the way I managed that is I still had Mac OS on a different computer. I just had 2 computers, and then over time, eventually I fully migrated to Windows, and there was no longer anything that I couldn't do in Windows because
that's the thing. You get used to it. You're like, oh,
yeah,
this weird error message has popped up, or oh, this isn't working. I know where to check now because I've used the operating system.
But I feel like the thing with Windows, transitioning to Windows was more like I was reliant on using a lot of tools that just come with Mac OS, and I needed to find Windows equivalents like editing suites, screen recording, etc., etc. Whether going to Linux, it's like, okay, well, the tools do exist, but for some reason the tools aren't working, or like I want to play a game and the game it should run. Everything I'm seeing says it should run and it doesn't. And like if I want to play a game, I just want to play a game. I don't want to spend 2 hours trying to get it working and then play the game. Like,
a lot of the tools as well are written like by Linux, understandably written by Linux enthusiasts, and they kind of assume a certain level. A lot of them I found assume a certain level of knowledge.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh yeah, to install this tool, do this, 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 and this. I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's never gonna be. It's never gonna become mainstream if the fix requires an in-depth knowledge of the operating system. If like, yeah, it's. I think I've got so much experience. I've got like, at this point, I've now been using Windows, for 9 years as my primary operating system, which is like more than half the time that I've been like properly using computers. So,
right.
Like, I've got so much experience using Windows, and also working in IT supporting Windows. It's like it's like going back to being a complete noob at computers using Linux.
I think it's the equivalent of.
Go on.
If someone told you tomorrow that your keyboard has to switch to Dvorak.
Yeah.
It's that exact thing of like, you don't know what you're doing. You're like hunt and pecking every single keystroke.
Yeah.
It's that same thing of like, I'm really familiar with this one layout.
Yeah.
And this one way of doing things, and now I had it switched to this completely different way.
Yeah.
And everything I know is worthless. And I have to learn again. As
incoherent as Windows is, and I take the piss out of it all the time for how like messy it is with legacy bits of stuff in it. I know where those bits are and how to get to them if I need them, and you
can take a shot at like debugging it instead of like, oh god, I have to go to Google for every single problem and try and find someone that's fixed this.
That's the frustrating thing. Like I can't even complete a simple task without having to Google some fucking error message or like, oh.
And then you have to hope that whoever's got the solution has explained it in a way that someone who's taken the time to be like, oh, if you don't know how to use Linux particularly well, here's how to do it step by step, not just been like, oh yeah, open up this, do this.
The problem is as well, it's like that Linux is so modular, because you've got like, so you've got the kernel, then you've got the kernel is actually what Linux is, and then you've got GNU Linux or whatever it's called. There's like the operating system then built on top of the Linux kernel, which is there's loads of different forks of it, so your code base can be different, so you can't just necessarily assume that because this fix works on one distro, it will work on another distro. Oh, you're in a
Debian-based distro? Yeah, here's a completely different.
Yeah, and then there's loads of different desktop environments, and like it's so customizable. Like there's not even like a one file explorer. You could have a load of different file explorers. There's different display servers. So you might be using different display protocols or a different version of the same display protocol depending on what distro you're on. And like, there's so many. Like, if you think Windows is a nightmare with different hardware options, like Linux is all of that plus loads of different software options as well. It's just like, I don't know.
You spend your lifetime configuring it.
I feel like the only way Linux becomes popular is there needs to be a dominant distro.
Which was Ubuntu, but is now... Well, I say it was Ubuntu. It was Ubuntu for like the users, but that's now fading. And
but there needs to be a dominant user focus, like end user focused.
Basically, there needs to be the exact thing the Linux community don't want.
Yeah, I'm not saying it needs to be closed source, but there needs to be like a default. And yes, you can do things differently, but this is the default. And if you want to do something differently, then you can, and you can still tinker around with it. But this is kind of like, this is the kind of default desktop environment that we all develop for. This is the protocol that we all develop for. This is the packaging methodology that we use for packaging applications, and like that's the standard. And if you want to stray outside of that, you can. But that's the only way it's going to become popular. Is it? There can't be all these different flavors. It just doesn't. It doesn't work.
No, I'm starting to think Linux will never become popular.
Yeah. But this is the thing. Like, I actually don't give a shit about Linux. It's controversial, I know, but what I give a shit about, like, I would not give a shit about Linux at all and happily carry on using Windows if it wasn't like spying on me and trying to ram Microsoft subscriptions down my throat.
I think the problem is the only way around that is open source, and then open source you have to care about it, and then because it's open source, people will fork it, and then because people are forking it, everyone will find their own flavor of it they like, and it'll.
But if, like, I don't know, I feel like if someone like Valve, or because it has to be open source, I feel like if SteamOS, for example, finally actually comes out to be installed on other hardware, maybe
there's a chance.
If someone like System 76 suddenly blew up big time, maybe Pop! OS could be like the Windows of the Linux world, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I don't know, man. It's. I guess there's a chance. There's a chance that someday Linux will become super popular, just like there's a chance that someday so will our podcast.
Yes. And on that note, we probably should end, because I think we're probably about an hour and 10 minutes in now, which is a bit over our usual one. But
if you want to help us become as popular as your favorite Linux distro, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, rate, and you can find us on
YouTube, Spotify, Audible, Pocket Cast, Deezer, and other places. You know,
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast, yeah.
As long as we accept the TOS, which I think we probably have.
Have we? Oh shit! Is there a new TOS?
There's a new TOS, but I think you just opted in by default. So
there goes our
data.
I didn't even know anything about it. So
if you want to follow us, we're here every other Monday.
Every other Monday, and
we'll catch you in the next episode in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Have a pleasant evening. Goodbye.
Oh, what a beauty. That was such a wholesome exit.
It was quite wholesome, wasn't it?